Sent to die, he returned with a beast that obeyed him. The landing skids of the scout shuttle retracted with a metallic sigh, leaving Jonas alone on the surface of Meridian 4. Through the pale silver mist swirling inside his cracked visor, he watched the ship ascend, its silhouette shrinking against a bruised sky. The engine's roar faded, muffled into the toxic haze. He was utterly alone. The air pressed in, thick with the scent of rot and a cloying, artificial sweetness. It clawed at his nostrils, layered and invasive, the unmistakable perfume of death designed by engineers. The suit's filtration system coughed and clicked, then failed altogether. It was too precise to be coincidence. Suit malfunction detected. Unfortunate. Commander Ralvek's voice crackled through the comm, flat as cold steel. Extraction is no longer possible. The mission must come first. I trust you understand. Jonas let the words hang. The mission. Always the mission. Even if it meant burying the truth. Even if it meant erasing an entire species. I understand, he said, but his voice was a ghost in the static. The night before, in the shadowed silence of the ship, Jonas's trembling fingers had danced across the Meridian archives. Lines of alien script, decrypted and translated, unfolded the horror beneath the bureaucracy. Containment protocols was a euphemism for genocide. Meridian Fort had once thrived with telepathic life, now suffocated beneath the sterile mist. Jonas's hands shook as he reached for the helmet's release. The seals hissed, an exhalation, final and irrevocable. Poison surged into his lungs, hot and acid, and the world convulsed around him. He doubled over, coughing, spitting pink foam onto ashen ground. The jungle beckoned, a labyrinth of tangled roots and shimmering toxic foliage. Jonas staggered forward, vision narrowing to flickers of color and shadow. His mind splintered, memories shuffling and dissolving, as if some unseen presence thumbed through his soul. He clutched at a root, breath ragged. Voices slithered through the air, echoing with pain and wonder. Stay with me, Jonas. Laughter, gentle as rain, surfaced from somewhere deep in his memory. He reached for it, but it slipped away, replaced by a mounting sense of dread. He pressed on, tripping over roots, boots sinking into luminous moss. Time unraveled. Minutes, hours, days. He could not tell. The poison worked its way through muscle and marrow, twisting his nerves. At times, he thought he saw shapes moving among the vines. At others, he remembered nothing at all. Once, he collapsed against a tree, bark sticky with sap that glowed faintly blue. He stared at his reflection in a pool of rainwater, eyes bloodshot, skin pale and blotched with rashes. He remembered the girl he loved, her laugh, the way the world had felt before secrets and orders. A rhythm pulsed beneath his feet, ancient and insistent. The forest sang to itself, and to him. Whispers caressed the edges of his mind, threading through the agony. He could not say how long he wandered before. In a world painted indigo and gold, he sensed the presence. A shadow detached from the undergrowth, silent and swift. Two enormous dark eyes caught the fading light. Jonas froze. He tried to speak, but no sound came. The figure moved, fluid, wary. Claws glinted, slashing the air. A silver blur whipped past his throat, embedding deep into the trunk behind him. Bark exploded in a spray of sap and splinters. Jonas staggered back, arms raised in helpless defense. The attacker emerged, a small humanoid shape, barely 3 feet tall, cloaked in silvery fur that shimmered in geometric patterns. Midnight eyes watched him, wary and wounded. Small pointed ears flicked, betraying agitation. He saw her clearly for the first time, not a monster, but a child of this dying world. Jonas dropped to one knee, exposing his throat, a gesture of surrender he hoped would be understood. He lowered his gaze, heart pounding. The alien girl hesitated, claws poised for another strike. Confusion flickered across her delicate features. The rage in her eyes ebbed, replaced by sorrow, a depth of grief Jonas recognized all too well. He held her gaze. "I won't hurt you," he whispered, words trembling. She didn't answer, not in words, but her posture softened, just a little. In that silent exchange, Jonas made a promise. He would not harm her. He would help her heal, or die trying. The jungle became Jonas's refuge and laboratory. He scavenged for samples, luminous moss that pulsed softly in the half-light, crystalline pods exuding fragrant resinous oil, rare flowering creepers that twisted and shimmered with each brush of wind. Every hour demanded adaptation, every moment, vigilance. Even as he learned to read the subtle signals of the alien forest, it was his encounters with the silver-furred girl that shaped his days and haunted his nights. He caught glimpses of her among the shadows, darting between phosphorescent trunks and leafy drapes. Their meetings were tense, a careful dance of risk and observation. Sometimes she stalked him, silent as the fog, her eyes twin embers in the undergrowth. Sometimes she simply watched, perched on a high branch, fur rippling in restless patterns. The first time he tried to speak, she vanished, a whisper of movement in the gloom. He fortified a shelter beneath the tangled roots of a sprawling tree, using broad leaves and moss to seal out the worst of the poison. Each night, as darkness blanketed the jungle and alien blooms exhaled new waves of toxin, he listened to her mournful cries. They echoed through the forest, a chorus of anguish, piercing and raw. The sound hollowed him out. By day, Jonas recorded every detail. He charted her symptoms, scribbling on battered datapads salvaged from his ruined gear. Sometimes, when the toxins were weakest, he saw her moving with fluid grace, head cocked in curiosity. Other times, he saw the storms of madness, her body shuddering with invisible pain, hands pressed to her temples, eyes wild and unfocused. He watched her flinch from certain sounds, the click of crystalline pods splitting open, the hiss of distant water. She recoiled from glowing spores, baring her teeth and spitting at them. At dusk, when the toxic blooms opened and poured their fumes into the air, she raged, claws tearing at the ground, voice rising in a keening wail. Yet even in the throes of confusion, she was brilliant. He watched her study the poison clouds, adapt her movements, cover her nose with woven leaves. She was learning, even as she suffered. One evening, as Jonas crouched over his notes, he heard soft footfalls behind him. He turned, slow and careful. She stood there, half hidden in the gloom, her body tense but eyes curious. He kept his voice gentle. "You're hurting, aren't you?" She bared her teeth, but did not flee. "I want to help," he said. "I think I can. Will you let me?" She stared at him, indecipherable. Then, just as silently as she'd appeared, she slipped away. It became clear to Jonas that his purpose was changing. Survival was no longer enough. Each time he saw the profound loneliness flicker in her gaze, something shifted in him. He was fighting for more than himself now. He was fighting for her. Days blurred together, marked by fevered trial and error. He harvested every plant, sampled every spore, tested combinations with the desperation of a drowning man. More than once he nearly poisoned himself in the process, but he pressed on, driven by her presence, by the raw grief in her eyes. The breakthrough arrived on a misty ridge, high above the choking vapors. Jonas spotted a rare vine, its tendrils entwined with glowing moss. He watched a beetle land on the vine's blossoms, then scuttle away unharmed, a tiny miracle. With trembling hands, he harvested the nectar and hurried back to his shelter. Under the flickering light of his last working lantern, Jonas fashioned a crude extractor from scavenged tubing and bits of glass. He distilled the nectar, watching as the liquid shifted from gold to opalescent blue. His breath caught. If he was right, this would neutralize the airborne toxin. He loaded a single precious dose into his injector and stared at the device, heart pounding. It had to work. For both their sakes. To administer the antidote, Jonas devised a gentle snare, threading a loop of vine and baiting it with luminous moss. He set the trap in a clearing near his shelter, then stepped back into the open, hands raised in surrender. Every muscle trembled. He did not know if she would come or if she would attack. Minutes passed. A shadow flickered at the edge of vision. Suddenly, she lunged from the brush, swift as a thrown knife. The snare tightened around her ankle, halting her charge. She shrieked, lashing out, claws slicing the air. Jonas darted forward, dodging her swipe, and pressed the injector into her thigh. The antidote hissed as it entered her bloodstream. He freed her foot and jumped back, ready for anything. She collapsed, convulsing, a low moan tearing from her throat. Her limbs thrashed, her body arched in agony. Jonas dropped to his knees beside her, panic clawing at his chest. Had he miscalculated? Had he hurt her worse? He touched her shoulder, careful but firm. "Breathe, you're safe. I promise, you're safe." The fit lasted for what felt like hours. Jonas kept vigil through the night, wiping sweat from her brow with damp moss, checking her pulse with trembling fingers. He whispered to her in the dark, soothing nonsense, stories from a life on a distant world. "Don't give up," he murmured. "You're not alone. Not anymore." Slowly, her tremors subsided. Her breathing evened out, shallow but steady. Jonas barely slept, fear and hope battling for space in his chest. He watched the sky lighten to silver, dawn creeping over the jungle canopy. When she finally stirred, the air was cool and clear. She blinked up at him, her dark eyes wide and impossibly deep. For the first time, they were lucid, startlingly aware. She reached out, fingers brushing his wrist. Jonas felt something gentle, tentative, brush against his thoughts. A sensation like a feather across his mind. A single word formed, not spoken, but projected. Who? It was not a challenge, but a question. One of identity, of trust, of purpose. Jonas held her gaze, feeling her memories flicker through his mind. Visions of a vibrant world, laughter ringing among crystal trees, hands clasped in friendship, then screams, flames, the poison, and the aching solitude that followed. He swallowed, voice trembling. "My name is Jonas. I came here to understand. I didn't know. I'm sorry for what they did. I want to help." Her hand tightened around his. Images flooded his senses, her people, their songs and rituals, the shimmering network of minds that had once united them. He saw her pain, her longing, the raw wound of loss. For a moment, their griefs merged, two souls bound by the same wound. He bowed his head, overwhelmed. "You're not alone," he whispered. Something changed between them in that fragile dawn. The distance that had separated adversary from adversary dissolved. They were allies now, two survivors in a world that wanted them both gone. She released his wrist, but her mind lingered, a quiet promise echoing in the silence. Jonas smiled, hope blooming despite everything. Together, they faced the silver dawn, not as enemies, but as something new. The bond between them was forged, not of convenience or necessity, but of shared loss and the fragile promise of healing. The days that followed were transformative. Jonas awoke each morning to the hush of the jungle and the gentle weight of Syrah's gaze. Her presence was no longer just a fleeting shadow at the edge of his awareness, but a companion, constant and real. Her name surfaced in his mind unbidden, Sira, spoken not aloud, but in a pulse of understanding across their shared thoughts. She learned quickly, curiosity burning in every gesture. Jonas would point skyward, tracing the arc of distant clouds. Sky, he said, and she echoed him, her voice melodic and strange. Sky. They touched the stream together, fingers swirling through cool water. Water, he offered, and she repeated, eyes bright. Water. He pressed her palm to the bark of a broad tree, the word rumbling from his lips. Tree. Sira tilted her head, then sent a ripple of warmth through his mind. Her memory of the tree as a child, climbing in the violet dawn, her people's laughter dancing in the boughs. The word was more than sound to her. It was history, meaning, a connection. Jonas felt her world unfolding, a lattice of emotions and impressions unlike anything he had ever known. Their connection deepened daily, dissolving the old barriers of language and fear. Sometimes they spoke in words. More often, they spoke without them. Sira explored his thoughts with gentle curiosity. Flashes of his youth on wind-blown steppes, the ache of exile, the hollow loneliness that had trailed him even among his own kind. She lingered longest on his compassion, the way he listened, the careful patience in his hands, the wound of empathy he could never quite close. He watched her too, marveling at the subtle beauty of her fur, the way it shimmered in shifting patterns when she was pleased or thoughtful. Her resilience humbled him. Her laughter, when it came, was soft and wild, a rare and precious thing. Romantic tension simmered in every glance, every shared silence beneath the canopy. At dusk, as the jungle quieted, they would sit side by side and trade memories in slow, careful pulses. Jonas admired her unbreakable spirit, the grace in every movement. Sira was drawn to his gentle strength, the way he protected without dominating, the way he listened as if every word were sacred. One afternoon, as Jonas was collecting moss for their shelter, a sudden crack splintered the air. A heavy branch, slick with dew, broke free overhead. He tried to dodge, but it clipped his arm, tearing through suit and skin. Blood welled, bright against the dull green moss. He sucked in a sharp breath, pain flaring. Sira was at his side in an instant, her touch both urgent and gentle. She knelt, examining the wound, and then pressed her palm against his forehead, sending a burst of reassurance through their link. "Let me," she said softly. She tore a strip of moss from a nearby trunk, chewed it, and pressed the healing paste to his arm. Her fingers lingered, tracing the lines of his hand, her gaze flickering up to meet his. Jonas's heart thundered in his chest. "Thank you," he whispered. She smiled, a small, uncertain thing, but real. A wave of warmth passed between them, bright and electric. He reached out, brushing her cheek, fingers tangling in her silvery fur. Sira closed her eyes, leaning into the touch, her tail curling around his wrist, a silent claim. He murmured, "You saved me." Her reply came as a pulse of feeling, relief, gratitude, a quiet joy. For the first time, they were more than companions. They were partners, bound by something fragile and fierce. Together, they became caretakers of the wounded world. Jonas cultivated the antidote vine in a small clearing, showing Sira how to tease open the blossoms, how to collect the nectar and tend the roots. "Pollination," he explained, guiding her hands. "This is how life spreads." Sira watched, then closed her eyes, extending her mind into the earth. She called the seeds to her, whispering to them in a language older than words. Over time, the healing spread. Sira moved through the forest, sowing antidote seeds with deft hands and a mind attuned to every root and stone. Animals once driven mad by the toxins began to return, timid, uncertain, but alive. The air grew clearer, the haze lifting little by little. Jonas found himself breathing easier, hope growing in the spaces where despair had once lived. Their partnership deepened with every shared task. They built a home among the high branches, weaving together his crude tools and her people's elegant, organic designs. She taught him to climb with silent feet, to balance on swaying limbs. He taught her how to bind branches for strength, how to make rain catchers from broad leaves. Their laughter echoed through the trees, bright and unburdened. They hunted together, Syrah swift and silent, Jonas cautious but inventive. She showed him how to listen for the soft click of a prey's claws on bark, how to move without disturbing the undergrowth. In turn, he fashioned simple snares, teaching her the patience of waiting. At night, they would lie in their nest side by side, trading stories. Syrah shared memories of her people, festivals beneath the twin moons, dances around glowing fires, songs that rippled through the mind. Jonas spoke of distant worlds, of the taste of snow and the quiet between stars. Sometimes words failed, and they simply listened to each other's breath, the silence between them full of meaning. One evening, as the rain fell in silver sheets, they found themselves wrestling in the stream. The water was cold, laughter bubbling up as they splashed and tumbled. Syrah pounced, pinning Jonas to the slick stones, her fur plastered to her skin in wild patterns. He grinned, catching her around the waist, pulling her close. Their eyes met, hers shimmering with mischief and longing, his dark with wonder. The world narrowed to the space between their lips, the heat of their joined hands. Jonas leaned in, brushing his mouth against hers, soft, uncertain. Syrah pressed closer, her mind opening to him fully, a rush of sensation and memory. Their kiss was fierce and tender, hungry and gentle, the culmination of days spent circling each other, learning each other, saving each other. As their bodies and minds merged, Jonas saw her through her own eyes, the depth of her loneliness, the hope she had almost given up, the strength that had carried her through every loss. She felt his awe, his gratitude, his growing love. The rain fell harder, blurring the world to silver and green. They clung to each other, laughing, trembling, utterly alive. In that moment, they were no longer just survivors, but the beginning of something new, a partnership of equals, of hearts and minds, ready to heal the world together. The Meridian surveyor returned, slicing through the dawn clouds on screaming thrusters. Alarms blared across the jungle as the ship's sensors detected the impossible, the air clearing, animal life returning, a planet on the verge of rebirth. Jonas stood in the filtered light, a garland of white blossoms at his neck, watching the ship settle amid trampled ferns and curling vines. Commander Ralvek emerged first, his face a thunderhead of fury. Behind him marched a squad of armored guards, visors down, weapons drawn. The surveyor's ramp hissed open, and the acrid tang of sterilizing agents clung to the air. Ralvek strode forward, boots crushing seedlings, eyes locked on Jonas. "Explain yourself," he spat. This planet was to remain quarantined. "What have you done?" Jonas met his glare with calm, his hands folded, the garland resting against his chest. "We stopped the poison. Life is returning. You can see it yourself. Meridian 4 is healing." Ralvek's jaw twitched. "You had no authorization, no right. Guards, seize him." The nearest guard stepped forward, pulse rifle raised. The muzzle quivered, uncertainty blooming behind the mirrored visor. Jonas didn't flinch. He caught the guard's gaze and spoke, voice steady. "You don't have to do this. There's another way." Before the guard could reply, a hush fell over the clearing. Syrah emerged from the jungle, every movement poised and regal. She was transformed, no longer a frightened survivor, but a leader. Her silvery fur shimmered in the half-light, patterns dancing in waves of confidence and strength. She walked with her head high, eyes fixed on Ralvek. The guards hesitated, glancing between Syrah and Jonas. Fear flickered in their stances. The jungle seemed to hold its breath. Ralvek's voice cracked the silence. "Stand aside. She's an abomination. She cannot be allowed to exist." Jonas took a slow step forward, his presence radiating resolve. "She is Meridian. This is her world. She deserves to live. So do all the others you tried to erase." Ralvek's face twisted with rage. "You think you can stop me? This planet belongs to the company. I will wipe out every trace of this infection." Jonas shook his head. "You're wrong. The world belongs to those who care for it." He looked to Syrah, giving her a small, silent nod. Syrah raised her chin and let out a call, a haunting, resonant note that vibrated through root and stone. The jungle erupted in response. Birds shrieked and dove from the canopy. Shimmering lizards scrambled over the guards' boots. Vines writhed, snaking out to entangle ankles and wrists. The guards staggered, weapons falling as the forest overwhelmed them, the very land rising in defense. "Hold your fire!" one of the guards shouted, struggling as a mass of moss wound around his arm. Ralvek, panicked, drew his blade and lunged at Jonas. The steel caught the light, deadly and cold. Jonas braced himself, but Syrah was faster. A blur of silver intercepting Ralvek's charge. She knocked him to the ground, pinning him with a gentleness that belied her strength. Her midnight eyes locked on his, unblinking. Ralvek thrashed, cursing. "You're nothing. You're supposed to be extinct." Syrah did not speak aloud, but her mind pressed on his, a warning and a plea. Jonas stepped closer, placing a calming hand on her shoulder. "Let him go," he said softly. "We're not like him. Not anymore." Syrah hesitated, then slowly eased her grip. Ralvek gasped, scrambling backward, fury giving way to fear. While the guards remained ensnared, Jonas knelt beside the nearest comms pack. He patched in the surveyor's main channel, fingers flying over the controls. He transmitted the recovered Meridian archives, every file, every order, every line of evidence detailing the company's crimes, straight to the ship's log and the wider sector network. The signal pulsed away, impossible to recall. A woman's voice broke through the comms, sharp and clear. "This is Captain Lyra of the Meridian Surveyor. Commander Ralvek, you are relieved of duty pending investigation." The ship's ramp lowered again, and a new group of officers spilled out, weapons holstered, faces grim. Ralvek tried to protest, but two guards seized him, pinning his arms behind his back. "You're making a mistake," he shouted. "This planet is—" Lyra silenced him with a gesture. She turned to Jonas, her eyes appraising. "You risked everything for these people, for the truth. Why?" Jonas looked to Syrah, her hand now clasped in his, and then back to Lyra. "Because I couldn't let another world die. Not when there was a chance to heal." Lyra nodded, solemn. "The Council will place Meridian 4 under full protection. No more toxins. No more secrets. You're a hero, Jonas. The company will want to honor you." She paused, offering a small, hopeful smile. "We could use someone like you. Come with us. Help us find other worlds to save." Jonas's gaze lingered on the bustling crew, the gleaming ramp, the promise of stars. He felt the old ache of wandering, the pull of the unknown. But beside him, Syrah squeezed his hand, her tail winding around his leg in a gentle embrace. The forest hummed with life, the world they had saved together. He shook his head, voice quiet but unshakable. "I belong here." Lyra studied him for a long moment, then inclined her head in respect. "Then I wish you both peace." She turned, signaling her team. The shuttle powered up, engines flaring, and lifted into the morning sky, carrying Ralvek and his secrets away. Jonas and Syrah stood together in the new light. She pressed close, her purr rumbling against his chest. A promise, a vow. Her tail curled tighter around his leg, anchoring him to this place, to this moment. Jonas wrapped his arm around her shoulders, breathing in the scent of rain and blossom, the air alive with hope. Together, they watched the last traces of the shuttle vanish. The world was theirs, reclaimed, renewed, and waiting. Side by side, they faced the future, their paradise no longer lost, but found in each other. 5 years passed. The world flourished. Air clean, forests vibrant, the sky swept clear and blue for the first time in generations. From their home high in the trees, Jonas watched the world remake itself. The treetop dwelling he and Sira had built was a marvel of living design, spiraling vines and crystalline panels catching sunlight, their home humming with the energy of growth. Jonas chronicled it all, meticulously recording changes in soil, charting the return of long-vanished birds, mapping the renewal of the streams. He kept journals both in data and in sketches, pages filled with the curve of Sirah's tail beside a blooming flower, the silhouette of a meridian fox bounding through luminous moss. He wrote for the future, for any who might one day wonder how a dying world had come back to life. Syrah moved through the canopy as its guardian, her presence as much a part of the forest as any root or bough. Her awareness stretched far, the pulse of every leaf and creature echoing in her thoughts. At night she would return, silent as mist, slipping into their nest and curling around Jonas, their minds twining in wordless communion. The bond between them was seamless now, a river of thought and feeling, ebbing and flowing, constant and true. Their love had deepened, growing not with the fire of newness, but with the steady strength of roots entwined. Sira would find Jonas hunched at his workbench, puzzling over his data, and circle her arms around his waist, her tail curling possessively around his leg. He would lean back, letting her warmth ground him. "You work too much," she chided one afternoon, her voice both in his ears and his mind. He smiled, setting aside his stylus. "Someone has to keep up with you. The forest grows faster every year." She brushed her nose against his cheek, purring softly. "Let it grow. You're not alone, Jonas." He turned, pulling her into his lap, burying his face in the soft fur at her neck. "I know. You're my anchor." She radiated amusement and affection, her thoughts a steady current beneath his own. "Good, because I have no intention of letting go." Some evenings, after Sira finished her rounds and the sky blushed with the last light, she would find Jonas mapping animal migrations, lines and symbols glowing on his portable map. She'd press close, her tail looping around his ankle, a gentle reminder of presence. "You think too much," she teased in his mind. Jonas grinned, scooping her up. "That's only because you give me so much to think about." He carried her to their bed of glowing moss, the luminescence casting soft colors over their skin and fur. Under the silver moon, with the night humming around them, they celebrated the world they had healed, their bodies and minds entwined, no longer just survivors, but the first of a new lineage. Their laughter echoed through the branches, a promise of all that was still to come. One night, as Jonas traced the pattern of Syrah's stripes with a fingertip, a strange brightness caught his eye beyond the canopy. At first, it was only a glimmer, a wandering star. But it grew, resolving into the unmistakable silhouette of a descending vessel. Jonas sat up, alert. Syrah stilled, every muscle tense. Instincts sharpened her thoughts. Caution, protectiveness, the memory of old wounds. "We should hide," she urged, her mind flashing with the danger of the past. Jonas touched her cheek, soothing. "Wait. It's alone. Too small for a patrol. We'll watch first." The ship landed far away, in a clearing beyond the river, A small concordant research vessel, its lights gentle, its hull unmarked by weapons. For hours, Jonas and Sira watched from the shadows of the high branches, silent as spirits. A single figure stepped out, Dr. Mira Solon, her coat flaring in the wind, instruments in hand. She moved with the cautious wonder of a true scientist, not a soldier, sampling the air, kneeling to study the soil, murmuring to herself in awe. "She's not armed," Jonas observed. "She's here to learn, not conquer." Sira's tail flicked. "You trust too easily." He squeezed her hand. "We trust, or we go back to hiding. I won't hide from hope." They watched, debated, hearts thrumming with the weight of the choice. Finally, as the sun dipped low, Jonas stood. "We show her what Meridian has become. We show her who we are." They approached together, stepping from the jungle's embrace. Mira looked up, startled. Her hand darted to her comm, but she did not flee. Instead, she stared, first wary, then wide-eyed with disbelief, as she took in Sira's shimmering fur and Jonas's human silhouette beside her. Jonas raised a hand in greeting. "We mean you no harm." Mira's voice trembled with awe. You're alive. Both of you. This world. It was supposed to be lost." Sira regarded her, every sense alert. Jonas spoke gently. "It was lost, but it's alive again. We helped heal it." Mira's gaze darted between them, piecing together the impossible. "How?" Jonas told her their story. He described the early days, the poison, the madness, the antidote vine. He spoke of Sira's resilience and the rebirth they had fostered. As he spoke, he let Mira glimpse their bond, Sira's sorrow, her struggle, the love that had grown in the shadow of extinction. Mira listened, rapt. "Your connection, it's real. Telepathy, empathy. You share everything." Sira nodded, opening her mind just enough for Mira to feel the warmth between them, the echo of old pain healed by hope. Mira's eyes shimmered with tears. "I never imagined." Mira shook her head. "You've done something miraculous. I came to study a dead world, not find its guardians." Jonas smiled, relief and pride mingling in his voice. "We're not just guardians. We're part of this place now. We're family." Mira knelt, pressing her palm to the soil, reverence in her every movement. "You have my promise. I'll protect your sanctuary. I'll make sure no one else comes to harm you. The Concordate will know. This world is off limits. It's a haven, not a resource." Sira stepped forward, touching Mira's shoulder. "Thank you," she said aloud, her voice soft and sure. Mira looked up, a quiet smile blooming. "No, thank you." The scientist departed at dawn, her ship lifting quietly into the sky. Jonas and Sira watched together, side by side, as the vessel became a distant spark among the stars. When it was gone, Jonas wrapped his arms around Sira, her tail curling tight around his waist. They stood in silence, feeling the world breathe and thrive around them. "We're safe," Sira whispered in his mind, a purr vibrating through her chest. Jonas pressed his forehead to hers. Safe, and together. They watched the stars, now not as exiles, but as keepers of a world reborn. Their solitude a peace they had chosen, their love the anchor of a new beginning. The years flowed gently, the world thriving around them. Jonas and Sira's treetop home overlooked a valley reborn, a patchwork of emerald canopies, sunlit streams, and the wild splashes of color from blooming vines. Each morning birds sang from the woven rafters. Each evening the stars reappeared in skies that were once choked with haze, now brilliant and endless. Jonas's journals brimmed with discoveries, sketches of new species, careful maps of migration patterns, notes on the subtle changes in the wind or the soil. He recorded everything, every sign of renewal, his handwriting as steady as the rhythm of the world outside. The walls of their home became a living archive, glowing moss marking the passage of time, pressed leaves holding memories of seasons gone by. Syrah's watchful presence kept the peace. She ranged far each day, moving through the woods with the silent grace of a legend. The animals had grown to trust her. She was the forest's guardian, mediating disputes, soothing the frightened, gently warning off any predators that threatened the fragile new balance. Sometimes, Jonas would catch the echo of her experiences as a pulse of satisfaction or concern in the back of his mind. Their telepathic link a quiet harmony, a current of reassurance always flowing between them. Their romance was woven into the fabric of every day. Syrah's arms would slip around Jonas as he worked, her chin resting on his shoulder, her tail curling around his ankle. "You're lost in your notes again," she would tease, both aloud and in a warm nudge of thought. He would reach back, fingers tracing the stripes on her forearm, and smile. "I like having something worth writing about." She would laugh, low and melodious. "You could just write about me." "I do," he replied, turning to catch her eyes with his. "Every day." Her presence was a constant warmth, sometimes playful, sometimes fierce, always grounding him in the moment. They shared everything: discoveries, worries, quiet jokes. He would read her passages from his journals in the evening, and she would correct him with a gentle flick of her ear or a flash of memory, adding detail he'd missed. When dusk fell, Syrah would return from the wild, eyes shining, and wordlessly draw Jonas away from his work with a single thought of longing. He never resisted. They would slip into the twilight together, making their way to the high lookout where the world stretched below them, awash in the gold and violet hues of sunset. One night, as the air turned cool and the moon hung low, Jonas gazed at the sky, tracing the constellations he had named for Syrah, the twin eyes, the silver tail, the guardian's heart. Syrah pressed close, her fur brushing his skin, her tail winding around him with familiar possessiveness. Her purr was low and steady, a song of contentment that vibrated through them both. "Alone again," she thought, sending the words into his mind. But the emotion behind them was not loneliness. It was perfect belonging. He smiled, sliding an arm around her waist. "Not alone. Never again." Syrah traced a claw lightly along his jaw. "Do you ever miss it? The old life? The stars?" Jonas shook his head, brushing a kiss across her forehead. "I have everything I ever wanted. Everything I needed to find." She purred louder, contentment washing over him like a tide. He touched the blossom band on his wrist, a delicate braid of white and indigo petals, Syrah's first gift to him. He wore it still, even as the petals faded and the colors softened. It was a symbol of their bond, of how far they had come. "Remember when you gave me this?" he asked softly. Syrah nodded, her memory blooming in his mind. The early days of healing, her hands clumsy as she wove the flowers, the nervous hope that he would understand what it meant. "You kept it." "Of course I did. It's part of you." She nudged him, affection dancing in her eyes. "We are a strange pair, Jonas." He grinned. "The best kind." They stood together, arms and tails entwined, guardians of a restored world. The valley below shimmered with life, herds of meridian antelope grazing, silver birds swooping through the dusk, the distant glimmer of fireflies in the reeds. The peace they had built was fragile, but it was theirs. Sometimes, Syrah would reach out to him with a memory, a flash of her childhood, the laughter of her people, the sorrow of loss. He would answer with his own, a story from his homeworld, the ache of exile, the wonder of finding her. Their minds met in these exchanges, bridging the gulf between two histories, two hearts. On clear nights, they would lie together on the moss, sharing the silence and the song of the forest. The stars stretched above, cold and bright, but Jonas no longer longed for the worlds beyond. Syrah would curl around him, her purr a lullaby, and he would fall asleep with her heartbeat echoing in his mind. They had become more than survivors. They were the bridge between two peoples, guardians and witnesses, healers and lovers. The world no longer saw them as lost or hunted. They were simply Jonas and Syrah. As dawn crept over the horizon, painting the treetops in silver and gold, Jonas held Syrah close. Together, they faced the day, knowing that whatever came, they had remade a world, and each other. A new beginning, a love that had saved not only a planet, but the hearts of those who called it home. That's the end of the story. Please do not forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and write in the comments what you liked most about this story. Our team will be very grateful to you. You can find even more fascinating stories on our channel. See you in the next video.